Good afternoon, everybody, and a happy new year to you. Welcome to the first Service Department News webinar of 2023. And today we are going to be talking about all things distribution in the Service Department, apart hotel and extended stay sector. My name is George Sell, editor of Service Department News. As you can see, I've got slightly less hair in reality than my cartoon avatar, but other than that, I'm fairly pleased with it. Service Department News is a online B2B platform for the service department sector. Today's webinar is going to last an hour. We'd like to make it as interactive as we can. So if you do have any questions for our panelists, please submit them using either the chat or the Q&A functions in Zoom. And everybody who is registered for the session will be sent a link to a recording of it via email over the next few days. So we've got three fantastic panelists to talk about distribution today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves as we see them from left to right on our screen. So firstly, Anand, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, George, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anand, and I'm the Managing Director at Cloud Apartments. We are one of the suppliers, and our major inventory is in Canary Wharf, London. Thank you.
Thanks, Anand. And Phil, welcome to you.
Thanks, George. Good afternoon. Afternoon, everybody. Phil Stapleton here from Situ, and we're a global service department agency specialising in corporate travel and relocation.
Thanks, Phil. And finally, Sarah, welcome to you.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I'm Sarah from Week to Week Service Departments up in Newcastle. We are the original service department company in Newcastle. And wish you all Happy New Year.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for joining us all, guys. Sarah, I'm just going to stay with you for a moment for our first question. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I've got some slides, some context slides to show first. I'm a bit rusty, the first one of the year. Yeah, we've got some screen grabs from stories from Service Department News to show here, just to illustrate some of the topics we might be touching upon here. So we've got direct booking in the case of the Ascot there. We're going to touch on the GDS. We're going to talk about OTAs. And if we go on to the next slide here, we'll touch a bit on Airbnb, the bleisure phenomenon, and also technology. Apologies for that blip, Sarah.
That's all right.
Since the pandemic, when obviously the whole sector was disrupted quite significantly, how has your overall mix of channels evolved and changed since then? Have some become more effective now than they were before? And how do you see things moving in that respect?
I don't think so. I think there are new ones popped up that seem to have taken everything by storm at the moment. For instance, like Alta Vita and the Home Light, the extended stays, like the minimum 30-day stays, seem to be really flying. You know, we still have the mix of agent direct OTAs. We tend to, you know, we'll use the OTAs as I think it's probably going on to the next question, but we tend to use them as a fill-in. You know, between the agent direct and the longer stays that we have. You know, our target is 30 days plus for obvious reasons. Having said that, we are seeing quite a lot of longer stays from Airbnb and Booking.com, which is really interesting because it never used to be that obvious. So I think again we're going into that bleisure, the bleisure thing that we're talking about, and there's definitely longer stays happening through those platforms. You know, obviously we prefer to have it direct or through our lovely agent partners, but yeah, it seems to be making a big difference.
And just to give the audience an idea of your target market, your guests, what proportion roughly would you say are business travelers compared with leisure across the whole piece?
See, that might have changed a bit since the pandemic, I think. Pre-pandemic we would be 80-20 corporate to leisure, and I think now it's probably I know, looking at what we've got, it's probably 60-40. There's quite a big difference. It does depend on the time of the year. You know, Newcastle and the coast and all of that, sort of, we have our seasonal curves. But yeah, that has changed, I think. And of course, with booking.com and Airbnb so being so huge and everybody knows who they are, you know, they all think they're going to get protected by using the big companies' booking channels than going direct, I guess.
So we'll talk more about the OTAs and stuff in a bit, but so the business that's coming to you through Booking and Airbnb, that's a mix of business and leisure, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we know that because they tell us. And you know, we have. I was going to come on business, but I'm bringing my family now. So can we have a 2-bed? You know, and that's it's definitely happening.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. And how about you? Has your optimum sort of channel mix changed much recently? What trends are you seeing?
So I would like to echo what Sarah just said, because as you said, there are a lot of other OTAs which has come into play majorly. For example, I would say like Alto Vitas and other people. But being in Canary Wharf, I would say the major inventory where we have is mostly there are corporate clients. We don't see much of a leisure mix into, maybe in London somebody comes in, but we haven't seen much of any mix of business and leisure. But in terms of, for example, pre-COVID, we had a mix of booking.coms and other channels just to fill in the gaps, for example. But I would say 2021, the agency business has gone off the roof, I would say, in Canary Wharf, basically. And we have seen back-to-back booking, the demand surge. Maybe the supply has gone down due to the COVID. Also, to be honest, 99.99% is our corporate, and that is through our agency businesses. Airbnb, to be honest, we haven't put our product on Airbnb ever since 2018. Booking.com, yes, to put our name out there, yes, we do advertise, and just to fill in gaps.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Anand. And Phil, anecdotally, from your accommodation provider clients, what have you heard from them about how their channel mix might be changing?
So first of all, I want to say thank you for using that picture of me on the second slide with lockdown hair. Thanks for that. So yeah, I mean, I think with all these things, I'm probably going to say, I'm going to caveat everything with saying it depends, which is a really annoying answer, but I do think it depends on your model. And I think Anand just touched on it, Sarah touched on it before. You've got what is your business? What are you trying to do? Because if you're in Canary Wharf, you're not going to be using a channel mix or evolving a channel mix that's going to be looking to include families with small children, for example, because they're not coming to Canary Wharf, as far as I'm aware, on the whole, for a weekend trip. So I think that it is a bit of a case of, as I'm going to kind of say on the next, on a couple of the other points that we're going to talk about today, it does depend, and it is a case of looking at your own model. But to answer your question directly, George, what we're hearing is that people are interested in some of the new players that are coming through, and that's not just where we're talking about reimaginings or new classic corporate agents coming through. I think there's some quite interesting niche channels that are coming through, maybe specifically focused on a type of traveler or a specific sector. For example, the construction industry, let's say, for example. So you've got kind of niches within niches now that which inevitably I think is there will be consolidation in the future, but I think that's a reaction to the fact that there's still a lot of evolution to happen in the sector. So I think things are certainly changing, but it depends. Which, that's not the best answer in the world, I'm afraid.
Thanks, Phil. So let's go back to the OTAs a little bit and start with you, Sarah. How is the way you use OTAs evolving? Is it, I mean, I think traditionally in the past it's been to fill in gaps in your longer term inventory, so you haven't got voids.
And that's, yeah, and we still do that. That's what we're there for, and that's what they're there for, really. But like I said before, there are longer stays coming through of 30 nights, you know, because booking.com changed the way, because they never used to allow you to do 90 nights on booking.com, but they do now. So that's evolved. So the way booking.com have evolved is following the Airbnb model, I think, a little bit, although they're much nicer to hosts than Airbnb are. But yeah, I think it's still a general mixture. We're still out there. They've got a huge marketing budget, so why shouldn't we use it? You know, let's get ourselves out there on that platform, because everybody knows who they are. You know, when you try and explain what a service department is, they say, oh, like Airbnb, and you can yeah, a little bit, but yeah, so that's kind of, you know, they know it, and so those brands are huge. They've got a marketing budget of, like, you know, a gazillion every year, so let's tap into that a little bit and use it just to get our brand, and we do brand our listings, so, you know, why not?
And the likes of Booking have spent some of that enormous marketing budget targeting the business travel sector quite heavily. So are you seeing?
We're definitely seeing it's more obvious. That's what I would say, because I think previously, like I say, it was, you know, you can tell the leisure and you can tell the travel, but it's more obvious now because they're longer, and they are staying and they're bringing family. So yeah, it is more. I can see, I can see it, and it's contractors as well, and you know, there's a big it's more obvious.
And do you think they're winning this business from the traditional service department agents, or is this new business that's coming from smaller companies?
I think it's new business. I think it's new business. I think it's business that, in my opinion, it would have been, say, for instance, the people who were having their business travel sorted out by their company previously, who have been given a budget and they want to book their own, they know they can go to booking.com rather than be tied into whichever their travel policy tells them to do. But also, yes, I think there's new companies, I think there's new contractors, and also because of the pandemic, we shouted loud enough to tell people that a service department is a fantastic place to stay and much nicer than a hotel. You know, and all the hotels were closed anyway, so I think we've gained business, certainly contractor business, from the pandemic because they couldn't stay anywhere else.
Yeah, and when operators were mainly just using the OTAs to fill gaps in the short-term inventory, the kind of fairly high commission rates there were necessarily evil. But how does the commission structure work? Do you pay less commission the longer the stay, or is it?
No.
Rate across?
No. No, it's always it's the same. Having, you know, it's. You know, I think there are a lot of agents as well who have increased their commission. So third-party agents have increased their commission. There have been some that were already a similar commission to booking.com or Airbnb plus VAT, for instance. You know, there are still some that, you know, it's very much guided by their client, I believe, you know, what they agree with them. Phil could probably fill us in on that one, but you know, it is the nature of the beast. You expect to pay, you're not going to get it for free, and you expect to pay something for that, you know, that kind of being that visibility. Yeah, well, like you say, I mean, you're paying to use their enormous marketing budget. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Anand, has your use of OTAs changed at all, and if so, how?
Just to add on to what Sarah said, is majorly, I think, the difference between if you talk about only London or say Canary Wharf, there is quite a difference in Canary Wharf, as Phil touched upon. There is very less trouble in terms of when you talk about leisure traveling. But yes, OTA, we had used in the past, but now, as I said, the major significance, because what we have seen since July last year, the amount of long stays, on average stay for us in Canary Wharf has been 2+ months. We have guests who have an 8 to 9 month stay for about a year. Has corporates' length of stay or policies changed? We don't know, but these are a few of the major clients in Canary Wharf. Also, Booking.com, we have been able to manage, for example, length of stay. So if some of the buildings, it doesn't allow less 90 nights, for example. So we are able to put those onto those platforms. And as today, our name is out there. Also, when we get through, as I said, 99% of our business comes through this global agents who have long-term relationship with these major corporations. So none of them can get in anyway. So Booking.com will not be somebody who would be used by, say, a major client who says, Situ, you got a contract with them for 3 years. So it has to come through them, basically, or maybe other agents combined. But yeah, we do get a lot of direct business. For example, maybe, as Sarah said, added on, so a client has, or a project manager says, oh, let's go and save some money out on this project. So IT professionals coming in, trying to do their due diligence and trying to find out, and Booking.com and Airbnbs are the first to go after globally, because they can find us out there. So that is what the mix we have seen. And also we have noticed people getting in touch with us direct, because as I said, cloud departments, we are not there out there marketing ourselves, because our business comes in through for agencies. But people do find us through Google, through Booking.com, and try to get in touch direct. So that is something which we have seen newly. And also that through the PMS and channel managers, we are being advertised to other OTAs which we never intend to use. But yeah, there are lots things which we can use in future, maybe, or maybe the suppliers who got humongous inventory, they might be more beneficial from major OTAs out there. Yeah.
We'll move on to direct bookings in a minute, Anand. But the obviously, so the proportion of your business through OTAs is quite small. But are you seeing the length of stay from that channel increasing?
Yes, indeed. So as I said, if there are direct, so if there is a very strict policy by a corporate client saying that you have to book through XYZ or our own channels, it's fine. If somebody is a technology guy who's just coming over and he got his per diem XYZ and he's trying to find a accommodation, so you do get in touch, and there are direct clients coming in through majorly Booking.com, because that is the most reliable OTAs I consider. See, if you say Booking.com somewhere here, the other OTAs are way behind Booking.com.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Anand. Phil, I'm not going to ask you to let daylight in on magic, but just going back to one of Sarah's points there, how do agency commission rates compare with the OTAs in general?
Oh, of course, we're always way less and loads more value as well. You know, I'm not sure that you can. Of course, there are comparisons in the models. But I was going to touch on this for this question, is that it is about both Sarah and Anand have talked about, let's say, IT contractors, or let's say construction contractors, people on projects, people that are ultimately controlling their own travel spend outside of major global programs, a B2B2C category, if you will, whereby they are making their own buying decisions. Yeah. This is traditionally, for myself and other companies in our bracket, not a type of customer that we can compete with OTAs to catch, because of course we do get that business. Do we get as much business that way that we would perhaps of managing regional, national, global programs? No, that's what we're there to do. That's where partly the value comes for both our value partners, such as Sarah and Anand, but also the clients as well, because it's not just a pure booking function. So I suppose they are two different things for me, and they're two different categories of people. But it is interesting, certainly, to hear that I think there's a good news nugget in there for everybody, which is that if the ability to book long stay as a instant clickable transaction and an online transaction where nobody is involved or having to support to do that, I would say that is something that shows the confidence in our sector and the product, because the consumer is willing to commit to a length of stay of, let's say, 90 nights without having to speak to a person to do that. So like all things, there's a mix, and there's tools in the toolbox to look after lots of different types of clients, which is partly what we're doing. And again, I'm sure some of our esteemed peers in the industry, but it's again, it does depend on who you're talking to and who you're looking after and who you're serving, I would say.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Phil. Just want to touch on Airbnb briefly. Sarah, starting with you, you mentioned you do use it. They've, similarly to Booking and Expedia and so on, they've made a real big effort, A, to increase length of stay, and B, to win over business travellers. They've traditionally had significantly cheaper commission rates than the bigger OTAs, but people are saying that
anymore.
Well, I was going to say, is that still the case?
No.
No. So how has that changed, and how do you use Airbnb? Is it different from the other OTAs?
So Airbnb as a platform, as I said, everybody knows what Airbnb is. So they know it's a holiday home. They know it's not a hotel. They know that, you know, what they're booking is an entire property most of the time. I know there are some very weird and wonderful things on there, but most of the time it's an entire property. They have changed their policies somewhat as far as a host is concerned, and it all seems to be gearing more towards the guest now, rather than they always used to look after the host. But they are, so their commission is 15% plus VAT. And that's it. So it's the same as booking.com and all the others, but there's no choice as to whether you charge that onto the guest or as a host you pay that service charge. It's always the host that pays that service charge. So the guest never pays anything, which I suppose it's okay. It brings more people in, and you know, that it is what it is. But it does seem to be, it is proving a little more difficult to work with them as a professional host and multiple unit operator. Because, you know, the old Tetris games that we all play, you know, moving people around, Airbnb don't like that. And even if the guest has accepted the change, there is a very small it's a very good chance that you'll have to give them a refund anyway, even if they've accepted that change. For the inconvenience. So they are, you know, and there will be people that find that loophole and say, yes, I accept that change and get a free stay, and at the detriment to us as a professional host and multi-property, you know, owners, so management. So it's tricky, but like I say, everybody knows what Airbnb is. Everybody you know, will go on to Airbnb. They hide everything. It's very difficult to find out who you're actually booking into. So yeah, so it's you know, as a marketing platform, it's brilliant. But
I mean, in the early days of Airbnb, a lot of business travelers wouldn't touch them because they were concerned about duty of care and safety standards and this kind of thing. I mean, they have done quite a bit to try and improve that. Is their reputation with business travelers and corporate travel buyers still wary?
I still think it's a little bit wary. I still think that when the leisure travel from Airbnb is much more than business travel. We don't see an awful lot of business travelers coming through. There may be the odd one or two who've used it and use their company card, but it's definitely more a leisure for us, a leisure platform.
So is the average length of stay through Airbnb shorter than it would be through the other OTAs?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. Let's move on and talk a bit about direct booking, because obviously if you can fill your units without paying commission, then that's a good state of play for the provider, but it's not an easy thing to do. Anand, you mentioned that you are getting more direct bookings. Is this a result of people staying with you once, having a good experience, and then coming back to you directly, or is it a result of some of your sort of marketing outreach? How does it work?
There's a mix of both, for example. So it's firstly being out there, for example. It is somebody who has stayed with us, for example, and they spread the word out there, saying if you and the experience is key. And so basically that is the thing. But when I say direct booking, it might be very minimum for us, because what we work is, as I said, is we do get direct bookings when they sell it. One of my friend is coming in for a holiday, for example, and he needs about a 7-day plus booking. Oh. And those kind of bookings may be it. Being in Canary Wharf, for example, is, and mostly if we want to say direct booking from corporate clients, it doesn't make it's most of these clients in this area have long-term relationships or RFPs with big agencies, wherein it's hard firstly for small operators to go and penetrate that sector, and the corporates also doesn't want them to be bucked with, say, 20 operators going through their door. So as I said, 95% of our booking comes through agencies, and we are much happier doing that and keeping those clients happy, wherein once you got our reputation, for example, or the quality, say if anybody stays with us if say XYZ client, if he stays with us and he just goes and spread, we don't get to hear much about our services. But what we realize is, like, once we put an option out and it's been booked, that shows that yes, at the back there is some kind of Phil might be able to touch upon that, because in the big agencies, how they monitor as a supplier, because I think there might be some kind of this supplier is good, this is best, 1, 2, 3, 5. And what we have seen when we offer it to certain clients, they straight away book with us. And with some might not be, because we might be down the list in terms of their preferences, maybe the locations, or we're far away. But yes, in terms of direct, for example, at the moment, our focus as a company is not, because we're quite happy with the mix of agency booking.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Anand. How about you, Sarah? What would you say is your proportion of direct bookings, and how would you go about growing that if you could?
We always, we're always working really hard in the background to increase our direct bookings. We do have a lot of repeat business, which is fantastic. That's what you strive for. We get, we're happy with working with the agents because they know us, so they're selling us. We don't have to sell ourselves. We know, that they, they know us. Otherwise, they wouldn't even ask us for a quote. So, it's not that, but we do work really hard. We do lots of, social media stuff. We do, all sorts of local, sort of local networking and all that kind of stuff to get that direct booking in, and we just talk to our clients, talk to people who have stayed with us before, just picking up that low-lying fruit, because they're the guys that have, we don't really need to just to sell our products to. But obviously 100% direct booking over 35 properties would be amazing, but it's very rare. It's not going to happen, but but the mix is good. We're all happy.
So it's a mix. It's a mixture of marketing to
Mhm.
previous clients. And are there any quick wins you can do with your own website? SEO and this kind of stuff, or is it just not worth competing with?
Oh no, absolutely. And Claire's the marketeer. she does all of that. But no, I mean we work really closely with our SEO guys who do research all the time. It's they're all extended. We're a small team of 5, so we have an extended team of people who work with us for us. So they're on it every day, all the time, looking at what we can do, looking at what needs to be. So is anything happening in Sunderland, for instance, or is anything happening, Northumberland or anywhere else? And then, yeah, absolutely, just through the website. We're in the process of upgrading the website at the moment. So, absolutely, it has to be fresh and it has to be competitive. And, you can't just sit back on your laurels and sit back and wait for it to come in, because it's just not, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Sarah. Phil, what's the agent's view on providers marketing directly to clients that might have originally come from you? Is that a kind of an accepted thing that's going to happen?
I think that going back to my last point where we talked about the idea that agents in Situ's space, so other people that are our competitors and peers in this space, we are typically managing contracted clients. So I think it would be unusual for us to find that the contracted clients are sending their employees in, and those employees are subsequently then coming back and booking direct, purely from the fact that it's just not the way it would normally be done within their own business. And similarly, we enjoy a really great relationship with the vast majority of everyone that we work with, in terms of them feeding back to us about the kind of whether somebody does come back and ask to rebook, and pushing that back through the relevant channels. So that's normally how we see it. And I think that certainly maybe a different story, again, individual, the kind of B2B2C, the independent travelers are booking through an OTA. If they're then having a great experience and coming back through directly, then well, hey, they had the opportunity to do that in the first place. It's unsurprising, I think, that they're going to do that. But I think with overall with direct bookings, I think there is always a strategy for any property. If it has a fixed geographical position, there will be opportunities for some properties. If you're right next to a hospital, for example, or there will be reasons where direct bookings are appropriate and they work. And I think sometimes you would capitalize on that. Similarly, if brand is a big thing, experiential kind of brand positioning, or certainly in the leisure space, you can also see that. Where you will develop a name and return business based on the fact that people enjoy the experience of coming to you. I think it, of course, does play a part in it, and there I go again with it. It does depend on the business, but of course, from our perspective, we see our value in partnering and actually being an extension of the sales function of all our partners. So that's as we would see it through our end of the telescope, as it were.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's obviously working, Phil, because you've got a very satisfied customer here who's commented in the shape of Paul Perkins, who said, Booking.com charge commission on the VAT element. Service department agents charge on the net of VAT. So if you're paying 18% to Booking, it's the equivalent to 21.6% commission. And then he adds, Phil is extremely good value. So
well, there you go. I will be sending my £10 note in the post. So thank you very much.
Anand, see, you've raised your hand there. Did you want to come in on the direct booking point?
Yeah, but I guess Phil already touched on that point. So basically, when we talk about us as a cloud departments, we don't. The reason I raised my hand was because that's what I've done throughout my as a working history for me, because I was selling service department globally. And to get direct business for me to go out there, it just might not be that difficult. But I see it depends on operators, for example, the suppliers. As Phil said, if you are a big brand and if you got a massive property of about 500 apartments in one of the locations, then you spend X amount of money on marketing. You got a sales team force out there going and selling your product. So you get direct businesses make sense. Before, depending on XYZ operator, for us, for me, for example, or for us, it doesn't make much sense in terms of getting in and penetrating those big banks in Canary Wharf, rather than we're much happier than to stay the way it works. So it's kind of a game how you play.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Anand. So Phil, it sounds like the kind of relationship between the provider and the agent is a genuine partnership. You know, it's a case of trust and working with each other. How would you say the role of the agent is changing? I mean, both from your particular Situ perspective and in general in the industry.
I mean, I think from all the years I've been in this and going back a long time now, I'm thinking about some of the conversations I've had with travel buyers, where there used to certainly be a preference for an agent to be associated with a hybrid model, so that there's an idea that you are able to at least leverage and I say idea because I certainly think that's what it was. It was an idea rather than reality, but leverage better rates on your own stock and ultimately therefore provide a better overall service with this kind of agency tacked on the edge. Swinging kind of back in the other direction now, or swinging the direction, it hasn't been like this, but it's been going like this for a while, is the idea of the pure agent or someone who is non-biased coming in to consult, to look at technology with the client, you know, to use your words, you know, there's a true partnership there, and being able to be the brick that sits in the middle and kind of sits there and really creates a solid platform, I should say, between the client and the supply chain that's out there. So how it's evolved, I think, is certainly, I think the value hopefully has been seen by all stakeholders that are in that value chain, but also I think one of the things we're seeing more and more every year is the requirement for more and more involved technology solutions, and the ability to work with either legacy or new technologies that are coming through. It's something that Sarah mentioned just before this panel started, that there is a huge amount of technology kind of permanently coming out now in the travel space, and as fantastic as that is, it creates more and more of sometimes perhaps confusion for people that are buying these products to try and work out which is the good stuff, and also for us as a business, which do we integrate with, which are the third parties that we need to bring in for the betterment of both our partners and our clients. So there's there's business as usual, and there's service, and there's all that good stuff which we absolutely love, and then there's everything else around it, which is the technology. And I think that that's only going to carry on. It's going to keep going in that direction, and I think the expectations will continue to grow. And great that is the case, but I think it's hopefully the good guys out there, we're really trying to keep up with that and take all our partners along with us on the journey.
I guess predicting which new technology offers are going to take off and stay the course is notoriously difficult. So choosing which ones to integrate with your platform must be a perpetual headache, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I think some of the ones that I like that we're looking at the moment are where you've got some really smart guys, lots smarter than me, sitting down and working out how you take vast amounts of API connections and bring them into one place. And there's a couple of companies doing that I think will, there's if we do get onto it at any point during this, there's the GDS, let that kind of legacy technology, where actually if you start to think about these almost super APIs that can bring huge amounts of data in and kind of normalize it through one connection, is going to potentially change quite a lot of stuff. So I think that's the kind of thing we look at, like how can we have big wins with the least amount of connections to maintain, because the more connections, the more complexity, the easier things are to break, and ultimately they cost a lot more to maintain. So, as you say, trying to predict that is tough. So it's looking at where does technology offer a simple but effective solution. I think maybe that's the standout point for me.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Phil. Sarah, from an accommodation provider's point of view, how have you seen your working relationship with agents change, and what's the kind of direction of travel with that, do you think?
I don't think it has changed. We are doing more to keep the relationship steady, keeping in touch, not just sitting back and thinking, oh, they'll send us the business, it'll be fine, because it doesn't happen like that. Certainly post-pandemic, nobody we still don't know who's gone and who's here, and if you haven't been heard from for a while, then the assumption is actually they may not even be around anymore. But lots of kind of just keep talking, and the agencies have always worked really well for us. We like the relationships we have with our the top agencies that we work with, and it's business as usual, absolutely. And they are they are creating more, like Phil was just saying about the technology. We are getting integrated more with the agent platforms, and so there is that kind of direct click and book, and but it's still through that platform.
Yeah. And what would be the optimum number of agents that you would work with at any one time?
Optimum number? There isn't one. As many as you like. I do think there are obviously the top, I would say, the top two at the moment is Situ and Silverdor. Those two, there are new agents coming and arriving all the time, and they suddenly pop up, and you suddenly get an email from random London agency that you've never heard of, but somehow they've got the same inquiry as we've had previously from Situ. So that there's no real loyalty. It's whether or not how they found that business. I don't know how it works. So we would always work with Situ, and not a random new one that came through that we didn't know who it was, with the same inquiry, if you like. But no, bring it on.
And you said the vast majority of your business comes through the agency channels. How many agents do you work with, and is it a large number, or is it a core of the regulars that kind of keep most of that business coming through?
So we work with most of the agencies across the globe, for example. And when you say local agencies, yes, the Situs and Silverdors are the big, and also when depends on certain other, like you have. So say 12 Works or Synergy and other people. It depends on which area, who has those clients. So major business will come in through. So I would say on top 3 agencies we will work all the time. Also, what we see in Canary Wharf typically is we might just see a similar inquiry coming in from 3 big agents. Is that how a corporate works? They might have 3 different agencies working. Yes, definitely. We see that. Also, geographically, if I see any other countries, for example, I know India in and out is, for example, any agent, any corporate in India will work with at least 3 agents, and so you will see the same inquiry coming in from 3 different agents. What we do is we have to put out all the options to all these 3 agencies. Who wins? I don't know. How it works, but they charge less commissions to them, or are the extra services they provide at the backdrop? We don't know.
Yeah.
We try to match up everything, maybe the rates or commissions and everything. It has to be. We try to be transparent and kind of neutral. But in terms of answering how many agencies, I would say top 3 agencies in who works in Canary Wharf. We do work with them.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe Phil can answer that question. Phil, who does win when multiple agents are working on the same proposal?
I mean, sometimes it can literally come down to speed. I think it can come down to the model that agent runs. As an example, if you are, there are some corporate housing companies which are more, which work on, as I'm sure people are aware, less of a commission model and more of a fee model. So I think that there's, price point is one thing. As Anand quite rightly said, there may be auxiliary services like taxis and et cetera, which could be offered. But I think one thing we would encourage, and Anand, you mentioned that the major corporates that you're aware of that would always say, well, we have to have a minimum of 3 people going out. A bit like you're getting the best quote by doing that. But actually, in fact, the argument in the opposite direction is by actually doing that, what you're telling the market is that this booking is definitely going to happen because it's being checked 3 times. And are you actually, in fact, driving the rate up by doing that for the end procurer, whether that's a travel manager or whoever's requesting that via an RMC or direct from a mobility department. So I think of course we're going to say it, but we do try to encourage people not to, or the clients we have not to use a panel model, because the whole part of what the value that we provide is we are already testing the market, and if we're doing our job right, we should be offering the right rates in the first place, and should have kind of front loaded the work on knowing what the best pricing is for that area, and from both our partners, but also understanding our clients' budget. So it's not a perfect world, but yeah, I think the reasons why sometimes we don't even know what the reason was. So I think it sometimes can be kind of hidden behind other parties, shall we say? Yeah.
Okay. We've got some questions coming in which I'd like to get around to in the last 5 minutes, but before we do, I just want to ask you guys about 2 more things. Firstly, corporate travel buyers' demands, how they are changing and how they are affecting what you as agents and accommodation providers do. I'm thinking particularly of the kind of ESG agenda here. Their tick list on the ESG front is getting longer and longer. Phil, presumably as the agent, part of your job is to check that all your accommodation providers tick all those boxes. Is that becoming a more sort of time-consuming part of your role?
Yeah, it is, and I think that quite rightly as well. It's something that we should all be aware of course, and we want to keep pursuing the betterment of ESG standards. How we do that is a constant debate that is continually going on within the sector. How we can bring a unified approach to that, because if all of us go out and do it separately, that's not going to work. If we do it as a unified approach, who controls that? It's a tough one. But yeah, I think that there is. We've already taken our own steps with our ESG program, Starfish, along with using some third-party accreditation standards to look at how we do things within the business. But there's more to do, and I do hear that when we're at conferences, when we're speaking to partners and clients, that everyone's still on that journey at the moment, and we've got to. Yeah, I do think collaboration is going to be the key on that. So yeah, it's definitely, as you say, a time-consuming part of what we do, and I think also to finally put on it it will cost us all money to do this. And I think to try to think it can be done either for nothing or for very, very little money is wrong. I think we've got to remember this is going to be a cost to everybody. And it's, again, how we do it efficiently and effectively and actually get some proper data out at the end of it. That's the important part, and make proper changes, both in sustainability and the other elements of ESG as well, because I think there is a tendency just to drift into the sustainability part talking about this stuff, but you know, all parts of ESG standard.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. And Sarah, as a provider, are you starting to see what the corporate travel buyer needs? Is their list getting longer?
Not really. I mean, we're kind of a lot of. I mean, like I say, the corporate buyer, the corporate traveller that books through booking.com is really only looking for somewhere to put their head at a good price. We have the tick boxes to say that we're doing this, that, and the other for sustainability, but as an ESG thing, it's really not that. You know, we're starting on our journey with the sustainability piece, and because the model that we have on individual properties is pretty tricky. We manage them; they're all individual. You know, but that's what. So we're starting from that point, and you know, doing little bits of what we can. From the agent point of view, yes, they've asked us certain questions, and yes, we've been able to, you know, give the answers to that. I don't think I haven't really seen anybody saying, well, I can't book that because you haven't taken out the shampoo bottles yet. You know, that kind of thing. They're not. It's not got that far yet. You know, and there's a lot of other stuff that I think they're more worried about at the moment as a traveller. And I think you know, it's safety, it's knowing where they are, it's knowing that we're on the ground with the backup that they need, it's knowing that they've got the backup from the agent who's made the booking, and the agent knows they've got our, we've got their backs, they've got ours, and it's all about that trust, and it's all about that, you know, commitment to each other's guest.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Just one more question before we go on to audience questions. Phil, one of the screen grabs of the stories I showed earlier was Sonder, which is kind of, you know, a company that prides itself on being a very tech-driven, new wave accommodation platform, had joined the GDS, which kind of seemed a bit of a contradiction, because I tend to think of the GDS as a bit old-fashioned, but maybe I'm not really up to speed. How important is the GDS now still, or is it as important as ever, or is it waning in its importance?
I think there's certainly still large factions of the business travel community, namely TMCs, that are using the GDS. It's deeply embedded into their tools. I don't think it's going anywhere soon, because I think we've got to also remember that we're looking at when we're sitting in a room with the participants here, and we're talking about, you know, everyone's head is on the whole mostly in a kind of long stay mode, and as we all know, GDS is not great at doing that. So again, depends on your model. I think, as we've all seen, there's loads of new entrants coming into the market in terms of institutional money, where we've got lots of lovely apart hotels going up, and all these types of models that allow for a shorter stay, because they have that apart hotel component to them. So GDS for those type of products, I think, works. It would be interesting to hear from Anand and Sarah whether they distribute via the GDS, because we tend to find that what we would call classic service departments, in kind of their in the form which we may have them in our mind, which is longer stay residential units, are not typically distributed by the GDS. And I may be wrong, but to answer the question, I don't think I still think its importance is about the same as it always has been to the service department industry.
But perhaps not yet, not quite as important. Okay, let's get on to the first of our questions from the audience. First one is from Richard Majewski. Hi, Richard. This is a good one. I'll start with you, Phil. How far away are we from the mobile app only booking platform? A little like the absolute reload model. Are clients wanting that flexibility and speed more?
I mean, look, I think we are our offering, and I should imagine the offering of others in our space, is that of on-demand online bookings. And online doesn't always mean instant. It means you can make a request, you can receive a quote, and you can confirm a booking via a platform. And where we've seen the most success in that, and where it works best, we believe, is via the programs where we have put in buildings or properties which are preferred as part of that program. So we're taking out the search function, or not the search function is there, but the part of the chain where the search happens is not as pronounced, because we've already done a lot of that work at the beginning when we're setting up the program. If you're kind of saying, is it going to be like booking.com but specifically for service departments, I think that's going to depend on the connectors between the suppliers and OTAs and agents. But to go back to the point before, if you are running a model such as Sarah described before, where you've got individual properties, distributing all of that data for instant booking whenever somebody wants to takes away the Tetris piece, and that part of being able to control where bookings go is kind of baked in to a large part of the industry. Not all of it, but certainly a good proportion. So there's no easy answer to that, Richard. I will continue that over a beer with you at some point in February, once dry January is over. But yeah, not yet. But yeah,
like the big sort of tranches of corporate business that would come through as well. It's probably important to them to be able to pick up the phone and speak to somebody if they need to as well, rather than do everything over an app. I mean, you know, online booking is great until something goes wrong and you can't speak to a human being, which is, you know, it's an important part of the process. Okay, one last question. I'm going to fire this one at you, Sarah. This is also from Richard. If you were setting up a new accommodation business this year, what model is most in demand versus the current supply? Are there any new models coming through? And he's assuming that we're talking about city locations here.
Oh, thanks, Richard. That's not my area. I don't know. I think there's a lot of hype around SA at the moment on all sorts of different channels, and how you can make quick bucks, and look at this million I made yesterday, and look, you can buy a flat, and you know, and tomorrow you'll be a millionaire. You know, it's taken us a long time to get where we are to like now, and have the loyalty and the you know, the kind of our peer, you know, success, and it's taken 22 years and we're still not millionaires. So it doesn't happen overnight, you know, it's hard work. The models that I see most being requested, I guess, is this whole rent to SA model. And you know, I don't really understand. I do what I do and I like what I do, and you know, while it's working and while we're, you know, still happy doing what we're doing, it ain't broke, so don't fix it. And I think if anybody else brought anything else into the mix, I think we'd probably have to shoot you, Richard.
Oh, seems like an appropriate note to it's 3 o'clock. Thank you ever so much to all three of you for your contributions. I think it's been a great conversation. Just going to show a few more slides before we wrap up, and we will be leaving the session open for a couple of minutes at the end with the countdown clock, so you can take some notes from all the stuff that's in the chat, because there's some good stuff there. So next week is on the 19th, so a week today, is the next Service Department News webinar. This one is going to be hosted by my colleague Felicity, and this is all about TMCs, the next generation of TMCs. So one very specific piece of the distribution jigsaw. As you can see, we've got some great panelists on there, and the link to register for that session is in the chat. Just wanted to quickly mention our Recharge event, which is taking place in Lisbon in a couple of weeks. This is my favorite of the events that we run. It's really good fun. It moves around different European cities every year, and we're going to be in Portugal for the first time in a couple of weeks. If you'd like to find out more about that and hopefully book some tickets, you can see the link in the chat. The entry period for the Service Department Awards 2023 is now open. The ceremony is taking place in May in London. Again, more details in the chat. If you'd like to work with us at IHM across any of our online productions or our events, please do get in touch with my colleague Katie, whose contact details are on the screen and also in the chat. And finally, just want to say thanks for watching. Thanks ever so much to Anand, to Sarah and to Phil for their contributions today. I think it's been a great session. Thanks to you all for watching. Please do sign up for next week's session with Felicity. It's going to be a good one. Have a great rest of your day and hopefully see you all soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.